This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Josh Strickland. Of course, we are part of the GSMC Podcast Network, and I just want y'all to know that this is going to be a very somber opening, as I'm recording this opening last, so the next 5 segments are not quite as somber. I'm in a much better mood in the next 5, but it was just very hard for me. I knew if I filmed this segment first, in order first, or I filmed it, it definitely needed to go on first, because this is clearly the biggest news in sports. And I have to film it last because it's just insane that it even happened. So, Sunday morning or afternoon, my girlfriend and I are about to go to the grocery store. And I look at my phone real quick, browse Twitter like I usually do, thinking about, hey, here we go. They're going to talk about the Super Bowl and stuff like that. I see a tweet from TMZ Sports that says Kobe Bryant killed in helicopter crash. Of course, at first I did not believe this because that's such an outrageous claim. And it was by TMZ. Now, I'm aware that TMZ is usually correct when it comes to celebrity deaths like this, but I was, of course, skeptical because the only source I saw was TMZ, and I didn't see, there were no pictures, no evidence, or anything like that, and I've seen hoaxes like that happen before. Like Lil Wayne, a couple years ago, was claimed to be dead. Stuff like that. I've seen stuff like that in my years on social media. So I just kind of shut it off. I didn't think about it because I just assumed it was fake because that's such an outrageous story. I just assumed it was fake. So I went on with my day. Going to the grocery store, I check my Twitter one more time because my girlfriend is taking too long looking at teas. And I look at my phone and I see Woj tweeting about it, and that's when it hit me. I'm 23 years old. Throughout my life, I got to see Michael Jordan play. I didn't get to see him live, but the only time I got to see Michael Jordan play on TV was when he played for the Wizards, and this is when I remember Michael Jordan playing. Kobe Bryant, I remember vividly playing for the Lakers. I remember as a kid I had NBA Live 2003 for the GameCube, and I would play as the Lakers, and this is the Lakers team with Kobe Bryant, it's the Lakers team with Shaquille O'Neal, and I would play as them, and I was a little dumb kid. I didn't know how to play the game, so I would just play as Kobe Bryant or Shaq, and I would just drive straight to the basket and piss my brother off because I didn't try anything else. But it worked. Kobe is a legend. He's an icon, and honestly, I still can't find the words. I'm still in disbelief. I'm still in shock that this even happened. And then you add in the fact that his 13-year-old daughter was also included on the helicopter. It's just a tragedy in every sense of the word. It doesn't matter who was in the helicopter. This is a tragic story no matter who was in it. If you take Kobe Bryant out of the situation, of course it wouldn't be as big as it was, but it's still tragic. At the end of the day, it is a father taking his daughter to a basketball camp to play a sport that they both bonded over. Of course, I saw the reports that his whole family might have been in the chopper, which I'm really glad that was not the case, because that would be the worst thing you could ever read. I remember my mom telling me about celebrity deaths that hurt her, that shocked her. You had Martin Luther King, you had John Lennon, JFK. Now, of course, I'm not saying that Kobe Bryant is equivalent to Martin Luther King or JFK, but I'd argue this is as shocking. Because Kobe Bryant led a full life at 41, but he still had a whole nother life to lead. He had 4 daughters that he loved very much. You can tell through videos and stuff that you watch of him. He had business ventures that he was interested in. He won an Oscar for his animated short, Dear Basketball, which is his love letter to basketball when he retired. And I mistakenly watched it last Sunday night, and it made me tear up. Because at the end of the day, yes, he lived a fantastic life. He lived a life most people would rather have, but he had so much more to do. He was just starting out that second chapter of his life, or his third chapter, whatever. And it's just the way it happened was shocking. Like I said, I didn't believe it. I still don't believe it. I still don't believe it. I'm still convinced that someone's going to come out on Twitter and say this was all a hoax. It's a huge marketing scheme. But it's not. And once again, I'm sorry. These next couple stories, they pale in comparison of the seriousness of this topic. And I don't really have much to say about it because it's terrible. I felt awful the past couple days. I could barely sleep last night because, not necessarily because of Kobe Bryant, but just because that stuff like this can happen to anyone. You sit there thinking Kobe Bryant is immortal. You remember playing him in video games. You remember shouting Kobe when you shoot a paper ball into the trash can. You don't think this can happen. And this hits hard because most celebrity deaths are kind of self-inflicted, either drug overdose or something like that. So I don't feel too sad about it. But this is not, he didn't choose this. This is not something that should have happened. But yep. The next few topics, I talk about the NFL, talk about some baseball news, then I end off with some Super Bowl stuff about the most marketing player or whatever. So I hope you all enjoy the rest of the show. I'm sorry once again for this somber tone. I promise you the rest of the show is not like this. And yeah, so hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Philip Rivers. A couple days ago, he announced that he is moving away from Los Angeles. He is moving to Florida with his family, moving his entire family away from Los Angeles, and he mentioned that it is not indicative of his current standing with the organization of the Los Angeles Chargers. However, earlier today, the Los Angeles Chargers announced that they are moving on. They have moved on from Philip Rivers. So this brings up a good question. First off, is this the correct move for the Chargers? Is this the correct move for Philip Rivers to move on? Does Philip Rivers have anything left in the tank? Can Philip Rivers actually play anymore? These are the big questions, and we'll, of course, discuss them in these next couple of minutes. So first, is it good for the Chargers? So Philip Rivers this past year, as we look up the stats real quick, this past year he had a completion percentage of 66%. He had 4,615 yards, 23 touchdowns. He had 20 interceptions, so he went 23-20, which is not the best. So 7.8 yards per pass attempt. So he had a high volume year, but not very good when it comes to touchdown interception ratio. So it's interesting that they're moving on. There's a lot of rumors that, well, not rumors, but there's a lot of speculation going on that Tom Brady would be the perfect candidate, or the Chargers are the perfect candidate for the Tom Brady sweepstakes, if you call it that. So basically, the thought around that is that you have Tom Brady in Los Angeles. The NFL would love it because they want the Chargers to get more love. And if you have Tom Brady playing for the Chargers, more people will actually go to Chargers games instead of the away team, as they still play in that soccer stadium, and they're going to continue playing in that soccer stadium until that new stadium's built, which might be ready by next year or the year after that. I don't remember. I think it's going to be ready by next season, so maybe they will be playing in that brand new stadium. So that's another incentive for the NFL to kind of push Tom Brady into doing this, because you get one of the league's biggest players playing in Los Angeles in a brand new stadium. And many people have mentioned before that it is very, very, very important when you go to Los Angeles, that it is very important to kind of get on the ground floor and be good right away. You saw that with the Rams. Saw that with the Los Angeles Raiders back in the day. Los Angeles is a very, very casual crowd. They will love a sports team if they win. If that sports team does not win, they will not care, because there's so many other things to do in Los Angeles. And that's kind of what happened with the Chargers. The Chargers were the second team to move to Los Angeles after the Rams. The Rams moved. The Rams got the Coliseum, which is the big football stadium in Los Angeles. The Chargers move pretty much like the next year or something like that. They move to Los Angeles and they get a 30,000 seat soccer stadium, which is about 50 to 60,000 seats, less seats than every other stadium in the NFL. Then meanwhile, to add on to that, a lot of the fans they got at their games were opposing fans, because the Chargers did not get in right away. If they get Tom Brady, they can get in right away. So there you have it. So what about Phillip Rivers? Where would Phillip Rivers go? Where would Phillip Rivers fit in this equation? Where could he go? Where would a team like him? So off the top of my head, Chicago Bears could be one. Mitch Trubisky, not doing it, not cutting out up there. So it would be interesting to see if the Chargers move on from Phillip Rivers and then the Bears pick him up as kind of a bridge, you could say. Chance that the Patriots get him, because one thing I think the Patriots would definitely keep Tom Brady if Tom Brady didn't ask for so much, and I know Tom Brady cuts his salary every year, he cuts his contract down every year so they can sign more pieces to put around him. However, he's still asking for a lot. I feel like Phillip Rivers wouldn't ask for that much, so he could be a replacement. You could see them just kind of swap right there, so that you have that one. And that's pretty much it off the top of my head. You have the Panthers, if the Panthers decide to move on from Cam Newton, but I think it's kind of counterproductive to move on from Cam Newton to go to Phillip Rivers. Move on from Cam Newton because of injury issues or anything like that, to move on to Phillip Rivers, who's had injury issues in the past and also is less exciting of a quarterback than Cam Newton. Just throwing that out there. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if they get rid of Jameis, Phillip Rivers could be a good stopgap guy if they decide not to draft any quarterbacks, or if they decide to draft a quarterback, have him sit behind Phillip Rivers. Quarterbacks are a commodity in the league, so Phillip Rivers could end up landing pretty much anywhere. Let's lay that down. He could land anywhere. The Raiders could pick him up because of getting rid of Derek Carr or anything like that. They could pick up Phillip Rivers as a stopgap. And once again, I only see Phillip Rivers as being a stopgap quarterback because he is 38 years old. He'll be 38 in this upcoming season. He's 38 right now. He'll be 38 in the upcoming season. So there is not a lot of time left on there, not a lot of mileage. His career statistics are really good. Yeah, he put up 4,600 yards, but here's the thing. He also threw 20 interceptions. He went 23-20. Now you could say it was the Chargers, but the Chargers have really good receivers on that team. They have Mike Williams. They have Keenan Allen. Hunter Henry, if he can stay healthy. Travis Benjamin's not too shabby. They have receivers for the Chargers. So who else could end up for the Chargers? Who do the Chargers have on their team? And that's a very interesting question. So their backup quarterback, if I can find him real quick, their backup quarterback is Easton Stick, who is a rookie out of North Dakota State. He was a 5th-round pick for the Chargers. So do the Chargers think that Easton Stick, which is a baseball name if I've ever heard one, do they think he can start for the Chargers next year? I don't even think he played any in this past. Yeah, he literally has 0 stats. He didn't even play in this past year. So I highly doubt that they're going to kind of bank their whole franchise future on Easton Stick. So who are they going to go grab? Drew Brees is a free agent. Technically, he is not. Drew Brees might not announce retirement, but he is technically a free agent. Tom Brady, like we mentioned before, if they pick up Tom Brady, then that's fantastic because your weapons are better than what Tom Brady had for the Patriots. I think the Chargers are automatically a playoff team if they sign Tom Brady. But we'll see. We shall see. We shall see about that. I mean, it's a very interesting conundrum that the Chargers have. I think they're pretty much telling Phillip Rivers, we're done with you. We're done. Get out. Basically telling him that is pretty much meaning they are all in on Tom Brady. And I believe that. They are going to try to get Tom Brady with ferocity, with force. They're going to try to get him away from New England. Because, like I just said, and I believe this, I think if the Chargers get Tom Brady, they will easily make the playoffs. With those offensive weapons that they have, with the defense that kind of had a bad year this year, but you're playing Kansas City. Denver had a couple of good offensive games. Oakland showed some life on offense. I mean, they're not in an easy division. People think it's an easy division just because the Chiefs kind of just demolished the whole division. It's not an easy division because the Broncos showed some competency on offense. The Raiders showed competency on offense. And then you have the Chargers, who had Phillip Rivers throwing 20 interceptions. So we'll see. We'll see if this was the right move by the Chargers. We'll see if this works out for Phillip Rivers. We'll see if it works out for Easton Stick. We'll see if the Chargers get Tom Brady. If the Chargers get Tom Brady, I just want you to know you heard it here first. You did not hear it first because I heard it somewhere else first. I heard this like 2 weeks ago when he played his final game. So, but I do believe that if he goes to the Chargers, they will make the playoffs. So when we move on, we'll be talking about Bo Pelini getting a new position with LSU.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So to make up for the lost cause that is the coaching carousel of the LSU Tigers, which that was a terrible, I don't know what that was. I apologize for that. However, so the LSU's lost every single coach that made them great in this past national championship campaign. They lost Joe Brady. They lost Dave Aranda. They lost other assistants to Dave Aranda when he took the Baylor head coaching job. He brought a bunch of assistants with him. So it's not looking good for LSU. They lost the guy that made their offense purr like a Maserati, and they lost their defensive coordinator who kept other teams and made the defense improve throughout the whole year. You lost both these guys. How are you going to replace them? So they are replacing the defensive coordinator with famous coach Bo Pelini. So if you don't know who Bo Pelini is, I'll give you a quick rundown, as I always do. I like making sure all my audience, all my listeners are very well informed about the random topics that I talk about. Bo Pelini began his coaching career at the University of Iowa as a graduate assistant for the Iowa Hawkeyes under Hayden Fry, which is a historic Iowa Hawkeyes head coach. Then he served 1 year as quarterbacks coach for Cardinal Mooney High School in Youngstown. Following the season, Pelini was briefly employed as linebackers coach for the Detroit Drive, the Arena Football League, now defunct Detroit Drive. He got his first college. He moved back to college in 2003 when he was hired as defensive coordinator for Nebraska Cornhuskers under Frank Solich. 2002, the season prior to his hire, the Huskies defense was ranked 55th nationally. In his first year, it improved to 11th and led the country in turnover margin. They posted a 9-3 record his first year. Solich was fired by the new Nebraska athletic director. Pelini was named the interim head coach and led the Cornhuskers to a 17-3 win over Michigan State in the 2003 Alamo Bowl. If you're wondering why Nebraska played Michigan State in the Alamo Bowl, I thought they were both in the Big Ten. This was back when Nebraska was still in the Big 12, I believe. So, Pelini did not get the job. They gave it to Bill Callahan, who had just been fired by the Oakland Raiders. And Nebraska's defense immediately fell from so they were 55th before they hired Bo Pelini. Then they went to 11th. He left, and now they went to 56th. So then he joined Oklahoma to be the co-defense coordinator under head coach Bob Stoops. They became the 6th place national rushing defense, 11th national scoring defense, on their way towards winning the 2004 Big 12 championship game and a spot in the 2005 BCS national championship game, where they got smacked by that all-time great USC Trojans team, Southern Cal. They lost 55-19, so that's not a good sign for Bo Pelini. He was then hired by Les Miles over at LSU to be the defensive coordinator in 2005. His success continued. LSU was ranked 3rd nationally in overall defense in each of his 3 years with the LSU Tigers in his first stint with them. And at the conclusion of the 2007 season, they defeated Tennessee to win the SEC championship, and then they went on to win the BCS national championship against his alma mater, Ohio State, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Then during the 2007 season, Cornhuskers, Nebraska comes back to Bo Pelini, hired Bo Pelini to lead the Cornhuskers one more time, once again. He ended the 2008 regular season with a 9-4 record, highest among all 28 Division I FBS teams with new head coaches that year. He then got a raise after that. 2009, he led the team to the Big 12 championship game against the number 3 Texas Longhorns. Texas was led by Colt McCoy at the time, heavily favored over Nebraska. Nebraska was ranked number 21 at the time. So this game was the coming out party of Ndamukong Suh, or it showed how impressive Ndamukong Suh can be. So it was kind of a coming out party for them. And so then we move on to 2010, where Nebraska ended up 10-4. Ended up in the Holiday Bowl. 2011, they went 9-4. 2012 went 10-4. 2013 went 9-4 again. Then 2014 he went 9-3. So you can see a pattern here. Bo Pelini is known for only winning 9 games. he always kind of trap. He kind of balance on that line of 9 to 10 wins, which for most teams, that's great. For most teams, 9 to 10 wins every year, guaranteed. That's fantastic for most teams. Most teams take that in a heartbeat. So, why was he not good enough for Nebraska? Well, it kind of happens. It happens with coaches. Sometimes it's just time to move on. Sometimes it's just time to depart ways. Sometimes it's just you've reached the max of where you can be. You've reached the ceiling for that coach. And Bo Pelini's ceiling was 9 wins. So what can LSU expect out of Bo Pelini? Which, by the way, he was the head coach for Youngstown State. Which his first year there in 2015, they went 5-6, rebounded in 2016 to go 12-4, losing in the FCS championship game to James Madison, and then he boasted a overall record of 45-30 in the regular season with no further appearance in the FCS playoffs after 2016. So he's kind of, I don't know if he's just got complacent or he just didn't care anymore at Youngstown State, but he kind of fell off. But he's getting hired by LSU to be the defensive coordinator one more time. And as I mentioned earlier, I mean, he helped develop guys like Ndamukong Suh. He developed great players like that. He coordinated some of the best defenses for Nebraska. He developed possibly the last great defense for Oklahoma when he was there. I, of course, don't know much about late 2000s Oklahoma or I don't know about late 2000s Oklahoma defense or early 2010s. I just know Oklahoma's defense has been really bad lately. So especially in big games. And I mean, that apparently has always been a thing. Bob Stoops just kind of implanted that into the culture of Oklahoma, I guess. So what you're going to expect from LSU is their defense is not going to make a drop off here. But here's what you're also going to expect. If you have a great year on defense, Bo Pelini is going to take off probably first chance he gets. This is kind of a Lane Kiffin hire for Alabama. He'll stay for maybe a year or two just to kind of build a rapport. And he's going to leave as soon as he can. So, that's what you're expecting. That's what you're going to get out of Bo Pelini. That's what you're going to get. So, that's Bo Pelini. It's an interesting hire. I think it's the best hire they possibly could have made. He is a hell of a defensive coordinator. He's going from head coach of an FCS team. So he went from a head coach of Nebraska to the head coach of an FCS team. Now he's defense coordinator for LSU. So it's kind of a, depending on how you feel about FCS and all that, this is kind of a backwards move for him, some would say. Some would say it's a lateral move. Some would actually say it's a promotion in some cases. I believe it is probably the best fit for both parties involved. Bo Pelini goes back to a place where he succeeded greatly, and then LSU gets to continue their defensive dominance with another defensive-minded guy to lead the charge. So when we come back from break, we will talk about some baseball. We'll talk about the DH rule possibly leaving the National League when we come back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Introduced to Major League Baseball recently. Some of them are welcomed, some of them are not. So let's go ahead and start about the welcome one, which is new for the 2020 MLB season, which will start in a couple months here. Much like NFL referees have done for years, umpires will be mic'd up and tell fans in attendance and those watching on television and listening on radio if reviewed calls are upheld or overturned. So, usually, when they review a call and it's either overturned or we don't know, they just kind of look at a screen for a little bit and you're just kind of sitting there and you're just like, replays, we're enjoying this. This is fun. And then the ump will come out from his little viewing area and he'll just be like, hey, yeah, with the out sign, or he'll just do safe or whatever, depending on what it is. So now MLB wants to make sure that you actually can understand what's going on. You can understand what the umpires are thinking. You can understand what is happening. Because most of the time, the umpires give no explanation. There's zero explanation at all. And they just kind of put their fist up for an out, or they wave safe. So, this is good. This is good. Because it's better for people to understand baseball rules. It's better for new people to watch. Like, if something crazy happens, if there's a review and like it gets overturned and you don't understand why it got overturned, this is great because then the umpire can explain what the rule is and people can get more can understand the rules better. So I think that this is a great rule. It's going to be I saw some funny jokes on Twitter that people don't want umpires to have mics because why on earth would you want umpires to have microphones? So that's funny. It's a funny joke, but at the end of the day, this is a good thing for Major League Baseball because people need to understand the rules. People need baseball's trying to make it more watchable, make the sport watchable as a whole. There's a lot of rules that don't make much sense, and the broadcasters can only explain them as well as they can. You need to hear it from the umpire because when you watch a football game and someone gets a penalty or there's a review, the ref tells you what it is. Like if there's a holding penalty, the ref clearly says holding on the offense, 10-yard penalty, first down or whatever, or second down, whatever. And when there's a review, the ref comes out of the ruling on the field, stands, player had full possession of the ball, whatever, when he crossed the plane, so touchdown, whatever. So I think it's good because it's going to explain rules that people don't fully understand, especially rules that will be replayed. Now, on the other hand, the only downside to this is I don't think this will be used much because a lot of the reviews that a lot of reviewed calls are like simple. They're like bang bang plays, like the batter's foot was like hit the bag 1 second before the ball hit the glove or something like that. And that's kind of self-explanatory. It's like, yeah, he's safe. You don't have to explain anything. He's safe. We understand. So that's kind of one thing. Another thing is there's growing belief amongst National League GMs that the DH will be instituted for the National League as early as 2021. So that's next year. That's next season. They want to implement it by next season. So why is my main thing. I am not a proponent for the DH at all. I think it is fine in the American League, but I enjoy, and I know I'm kind of in my own ballpark here, but I love watching pitchers hit. Now, I've seen people say, it's like, why would you want the pitcher to hit when all they do is miss the ball? Like, all these people are going to miss the 164 average that all pitchers had last season. And I say to that is not the point. The main reason that I do not like the DH, yes, it's fun to watch pitchers try to hit. Yes, it's exciting when the pitcher does get a hit, especially in clutch situations when you don't expect it. Those are great. I love it. It's one of the best parts of baseball. When Madison Bumgarner comes up and smacks a home run, or Zach Greinke comes up and gets a triple out of nowhere. It's exciting because it's something you don't expect. But that's not the main reason I'm sad about this, because I'm sad because there is a certain strategy to it, which I know a casual audience would not fully understand. I understand that. The casual audience will not care about strategy. They care about dingers. They care about strikeouts. They care about all that good stuff. All the most exciting parts about baseball. But if you are a huge fan of baseball and you are a huge fan of the strategy of baseball, you like the double switches. You like the should we take the pitcher out now or should we let him hit? Like, this pitcher's got a great game going, but we need a hit in the spot. Should we take him out and risk putting relievers in when this pitcher's hot, or should we leave the pitcher in and risk losing this scoring situation? That's the strategy that you're missing when you take the DH out of the National League. Now, I also like both leagues having different rules. It kind of adds a little spice to the game. It's kind of like if the AFC and the NFC had different rules. Like, what if the NFC had, like, different kickoff rules, but the AFC doesn't, and then when the teams play in the Super Bowl, they kind of, like, flip a coin, decide they switch off years depending on who gets to play under what, you know? It's just kind of interesting, especially when interleague play happens. So it's fun watching National League teams play at American League ballparks because it's fun what they do with their lineups. Because usually their lineups, National League lineups, are built more for utility guys who can play every position on the field, so you can switch them in any chance you can, and you switch the pitchers out any chance you get. They're going to take that away. And what's going to happen is, with the American League, most of their rosters are filled with guys who can't field anymore. They have at least like 2 guys who play DH. That's pretty much all they play. They can't field anymore. They are old, but they can still hit. I mean, Miguel Cabrera, Robinson Cano was that for a while, but now he plays for the Mets. So yeah, these guys are old. They can't really field much anymore, so they get to play DH. That doesn't happen in the National League. In the National League, you have these spunky utility guys who can play every single position, hold their own with the bat, and I, for one, would be devastated if the utility guy gets wiped out of baseball because some people don't like pitchers hitting. Get over it. It's a rule in baseball. If you field, you should have to hit. And that just adds on to the pitchers. And I understand pitchers, most pitchers, I know high school and college have DHs, so most pitchers, they go a solid like 8 to 10 years or whatever of not having to hit. And then you get to the majors and you have to hit. I understand that. I understand how that can be frustrating for these pitchers, but at the end of the day, you're a baseball player. You know what baseball players do? They hit the ball with the bat. That's literally a third of the game. Half the game if you're a regular hitter. For a pitcher, it's a third of the game. Fielding, pitching, hitting. If you take out the hitting, then first off, you're going to take out the hitting for the pitcher, so the pitcher's only playing 2/3 of the game. And then with the DH, they're only playing half of the game that they should be playing. Fielding and hitting. Take out fielding. All you got is hitting. I mean, yeah, home runs are cool. I love me some Big Papi. Don't get me wrong. I love watching these huge hitters in the American League. But I also love watching these utility players that get used in many different ways. It's just interesting to see how they're used in so many different ways in the National League. So I don't want this to go through. I like the difference. Because easily, if you love the DH, but you don't like pitchers hitting, you can just watch the American League. If you like watching utility players and more strategy, you can watch the National League. That's why I like both leagues having different rules, because it's a healthy blend. It's a healthy blend of each league. So that's how I feel about it. When we come back, we will continue with baseball, and we'll talk about the new Starling Marte trade.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
What on earth are the Pittsburgh Pirates doing? I really don't understand. So, before we talk about the Pirates, we'll talk about the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks, they've been trying to contend against a juggernaut competitor that is in their division, which is the Dodgers. And then, of course, you have the Rockies coming up as well. So, Diamondbacks are kind of... They're pressured. They want to win now. They traded Zach Greinke away in the end of last year to the Astros. They traded for Starling Marte today, and I think it was a good trade. They traded 2 solid prospects from a system that had enough surplus. The Diamondbacks have one of the best farm systems in Major League Baseball. So they traded them to the Pirates. Adding Starling Marte allows the Diamondbacks to move Ketel Marte back to the infield, where he can be a regular second baseman and perhaps reduce any impact from the stress reaction on his back that ended his season in 2019. So Starling Marte, no worse than an average defender in the center infield. He had a above average season defensively last year for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So Diamondbacks got very little out of second base last year when Ketel Marte wasn't playing there. So this trade probably boosts them by at least 2 wins, closer to 3 if Starling Marte is really the defender he was 2 years ago. It did cost them 2 solid prospects, but they are also within shouting distance of 90 wins, thanks to this move, and also signing Madison Bumgarner earlier on in the offseason. So, good move all around for the Diamondbacks. You improve in so many different ways. You improve by filling that hole. You improve by filling that hole with Starling Marte, and then now Ketel Marte can play. Marte's everywhere, man. It's a Marty party. Geez, I'm so sorry about that. But you also have speed plus above average power. It might be good enough to get a wild card spot for the Diamondbacks, and I say wild card because I don't think they can topple the Dodgers, because the Dodgers have one of the best farm systems in the league while also still having one of the best teams in the league. It's going to be hard to topple the Dodgers Diamondbacks. It's hard. Starling Marte is under contract for 1 year plus a team-friendly option. He remains a very valuable property in trade if they decide to move him at this year's deadline or next winter. So if it's just a rental for the Diamondbacks, they can get rid of Starling Marte, which I feel like Starling Marte gets traded like every year. So he probably get traded by by the end of the year. So he does. It feels like he gets traded every year. I swear, like every year. Because he used to play for the Cubs, I believe. I'm not positive on that. But I feel like he moves every year. Hold on. Let me look at his seasons real quick. Let me look at his teams. Never mind. I'm stupid. He's played for Pittsburgh his whole career. Okay. Never mind. Don't worry about that. So yeah, he played for Pittsburgh his whole career. But here's what we're looking at. Last year for Pittsburgh, he batted .295 batting average with a .342 on base percentage with a .503 slugging and a .845 OPS. Had 159 hits, 31 doubles, 6 triples, 23 home runs. He had 94 strikeouts, which is a lot, but not too much. So he was an all-star in 2016 for the Pirates. That's kind of when the Pirates were still contending, which that brings me to the Pirates. In terms of future potential, the Pirates did well in this trade, I feel like. Both prospects have upside to them. Leover Peguero. Oh, God, I hope I said that right. Super athletic 19-year-old who's already made huge strides developmentally since Arizona signed him. He was probably going to play outfield for the Diamondbacks, but now since he got traded, he's probably going to play long-term shortstop for the Pirates probably. Aggressive hitter, doesn't walk or strike out often, putting the ball in play over 71% of the time, which is pretty good, and he hit .326, .382, he slapped .326, .382, and .485 between 2 short season levels in 2019. This kid's straight out of high school. He's showing promise in the short season levels of minor leagues. So he's got a lot of promise to him, a lot of upside. He doesn't strike out a lot, which is always good for younger players. Makes hard contact despite a small hitch. It gets his hands a bit low and deep before he brings the bat head forward. Hits the ball on the ground over 50% of the time. Last year he did. He has strength, projects future power. He can put the ball in the air more. He's a tool practice. He's a top 5 prospect in the Pirate system. Easily by the end of next year, probably. He'll be playing in Greensboro for all of this season. They also got Brendan Malone, first-round talent last year. He's a pitcher. He throws 92, 95 miles per hour with a low 80 slider, and that is his best pitch right now. It's fast arm, compact arm action, with good extension over his front side, although his fastball didn't miss high school bats the way I expected it to. So, he's probably going to start in low A. But unless the stuff changes, he might be better served starting out in extended spring training than going to short season instead, as he works on a fastball command and work on that changeup. So one of Arizona's top pitching prospects is Blake Walston, and that's probably why Malone got traded here, because the Diamondbacks got a good lefty pitcher going for them already. So that's probably why they traded him. The Pirates are only going to make more than $5 million in 2020. These are the only guys who are going to make more than $5 million, and that's Chris Archer and Gregory Polanco, both of whom are probably at relative minimums in terms of trade value. Archer had the worst year of his career in 2019. Polanco played only 42 games after a shoulder surgery and played worse than a replacement level in that span. So, basically, the Pirates are getting rid of everything. It is a fire sale over in Pittsburgh. Chris Archer is a really good pitcher. He did have a career low last year, but he is still probably wanted by most teams. But because of his low year last year, he's not worth much in trading. The Pirates are blowing up the team. They're trying to get prospects. They're trying to get draft picks. They're trying not to spend any money. Their opening day payroll will be near $50 million if they don't trade anybody else. This team will be cheap, non-competitive. I just don't... I want to know, because I know a couple years ago the Pittsburgh Pirates were in the thick of it in the NL Central. They were one of those teams where nobody wanted to play because they were good enough to beat teams in their division. They were good enough to beat the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Brewers, all those guys in their division. They used to be in the thick of it. It used to be the Cubs, Cardinals, and Pirates before the Brewers got Yelich. Cubs, Cardinals, Pirates fighting for playoff spots. I think one year all three of them got a playoff spot. Two of them playing in the wild card game. So what happened? What is happening with the Pirates? What happened? They got rid of McCutchen, which I'm still kind of iffy on because, I mean, I understand he was older, but he's been playing pretty well for every other team that he plays for. I believe if McCutchen didn't get hurt last year, the Phillies would not have imploded like they did at the beginning of the year or in the middle of the year last year. They got rid of McCutchen, got rid of Garrett Cole, which I understand getting rid of Garrett Cole because you got a lot of pieces out of that. But they're pretty much breaking everything down. They're hoping it looks like they're going to try to go for the Atlanta Braves model of a rebuild, which is where you just strip everything down except for a few key players and then just build around them and see what happens. Hopefully you get enough prospects, enough picks to really get the team better. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, when we come back after this break, we'll go on to our last segment, which is going to be who's the marketing star of the Super Bowl? Who's the big name for the Super Bowl? You probably already know the answer, but we're going to find out.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
It is Super Week for the media. I wish I was on Media Row right now, or Radio Row right now, but I don't have the money, nor do I have the gravitas to be, one of those guys on Radio Row at the moment. I also don't think they probably accept podcasts. I can see them accepting podcasts. But anyways, media's come down upon the city of Miami at the moment, as the Super Bowl is going to be played on Sunday. And like I said a couple shows ago, Sunday I will have a full Super Bowl show. Hopefully it will go up in the morning before the Super Bowl starts. I'll go over the Chiefs, I'll go over the 49ers, I'll go over my predictions, I'll go over prop bets, I'll go over the halftime show, what I think about the halftime show, what my predictions for the halftime show. It's going to be a bunch of random crap about the Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl, man. You got to go big or go home. And unless any big news happens, other than big news I already talked about earlier today, then yeah, that's what I will be talking about. So let's move on. So, I saw this article on The Athletic. Who will be the Super Bowl's marketing star? So one of the best things about the Super Bowl, and it's pretty much been like this in 1985 since the Super Bowl shuffle with the Chicago Bears. The Super Bowl is the main marketing arm of the NFL for any player. If you are a player and you make the Super Bowl, you are automatically put on this different level. Everyone's paying attention to you for a full week. Even if you're a random dude that no one's ever heard of, you're going to have an interview, or you're going to be part of a Jimmy Kimmel bit or something like that. You have the best chance to get on television, the best chance to get your name out there and get marketed a little better, get a little money next time that contract negotiations start happening. So that's a thing going on there. So Patrick Mahomes is obviously the biggest star of the week. He is obviously the biggest star of the week because Jimmy Garoppolo's not that enticing. I mean, he's attractive to some people, but Jimmy Garoppolo's not that interesting. Jimmy Garoppolo is basically a clone of Tom Brady. Mostert is a good story. A lot of people are going to be focusing on him. Kittle is an interesting guy. By interesting, I mean he's interesting. He had a quote the other day where he said that after warm-ups, before every game, he goes and pukes. And then he comes out and bangs his head against the wall, and then he's ready to play football. That's insane. But anyways, this article mostly goes into Lee Steinberg, who's Patrick Mahomes' agent. He's been an agent for Ben Roethlisberger, Troy Aikman, Steve Young. Roethlisberger was a decade ago. You need to reach back to 1995 for Young for him. So basically, he had some quotes in this article that I found interesting. So first off, if a player performs dramatically in the game, then what happens is they launch into the celebrity making machine that's developed in this country and have the ability to transcend the narrow genre of hardcore sports fans to become a household name. And this is what I'm talking about. The Super Bowl is watched by almost every American. Well, not almost every American. It's watched by millions of people. Every year. It's always the most watched television program ever. Every year. Always the most watched television program. Nothing tops the Super Bowl. That's why so many companies pay millions and millions of dollars just to have a 30-second advertisement on the Super Bowl. And of course, you have to make your ad memorable if you're going to pay that much money for it. So, obviously, what he's saying is correct. If you perform fantastic in the Super Bowl, you make a name for yourself, everyone learns who you are. The reason Tom Brady is as big as he is because he's won 6 Super Bowls. The only reason Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, all of them are still in the popularity, the culture zeitgeist of America. Because they won Super Bowls. They performed great. It even works in the reverse. If you do poorly in Super Bowl, everyone knows about the hardship of the Buffalo Bills and losing 4 Super Bowls in a row. Because they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. Now, just like to mention, still impressive to get to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row, but it is terrible that they keep losing. So he continues on and says, that means that the players who interview well during the week have a brand already or propel themselves into consciousness during this week, and during the game have the opportunity to then do Jimmy Fallon and the late night talk shows, and to do all the morning shows, and do the Ellen type shows, to be featured on the cover of People magazine, to be written about. So in the same way that a movie star, a political figure can transcend their situation to become a household name, the same thing happens here. And this kind of turns back to what we talked about in the past couple of shows. What I talked about with Derek Jeter, what I talked about with Eli Manning, what I talked about Kobe Bryant earlier. If you perform well in the Super Bowl, you will be a transcendent talent. You will transcend the game of football. You will transcend the sport that you are a part of, and people that are not hardcore fans, who do not follow football at all, they will know your name. And that's why the Super Bowl is so important. So Mahomes is already a star. We mentioned in a former show that he overtook Tom Brady to be number 1 in jersey sales. He buddied with Aaron Rodgers in State Farm commercials. But his agent Steinberg wants him to be the next Peyton Manning. Which Peyton Manning was the runaway off-field endorsement leader for so many years in the NFL, and he's known to non-football fans. In fact, I was watching Peyton Places on ESPN Plus, and my girlfriend was in the room, and she saw that it was Peyton Manning, and she was like, Peyton Manning? Why is he in everything? She knew who Peyton Manning was. She does not watch a lick of football. The only football she watches is Clemson football. And she knows who Peyton Manning is. Because Peyton Manning's in SNL. He had one of the best SNL skits of all time. He's in commercials all the time. He's in funny commercials all the time. He's got his own show on ESPN Plus, as I mentioned. It's Peyton Manning, man. It's just transcendent. So Peter Raskin, who's a marketing agent whose clients include Garoppolo's primary targets, tight end George Kittle and wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders, said referring to Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy is a great player, great looking guy. He's loved by his teammates, but I don't think he's out chasing endorsement opportunities. He also added that he's super marketable, talking about Garoppolo, and if he wants to, he can certainly capitalize. So it seems like Garoppolo is more worried about playing the game of football than trying to transcend the game of football, which I understand that completely. You would like to win something before you try to transcend, because if you try to transcend and don't win anything, you kind of get made into a joke. So obviously we all know that the NFL is advertised from a quarterback standpoint. Quarterbacks are the big guys in football. We've talked about this before. They touch the ball every play. Every play pretty much comes down to whether they can execute everything perfectly, execute a handoff, execute a pass, execute anything, a pop pass, whatever. Quarterback has to execute every single play. But who could be other players that could transcend in this game? So let's start. Let's start with the top 4 selling players league-wide, not including Mahomes, so sorry, top 3. George Kittle, Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Bosa. These guys have the chance to transcend the sport if they play really good. You also have Richard Sherman, who's already known because he's performed in Super Bowls before already. And he has a loud mouth. He's always on TV. He's always known. He doesn't really have the endorsement deals that we've talked about with Peyton Manning and Patrick Mahomes, but he's always out there. Tyreek Hill, probably not because of some issues. So yeah. Then you also have other players coming to Miami, former and current, to also build up their rapport with the media. You have Jason Witten, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Tony Gonzalez, Sean Watson will probably be there. So it's interesting. Super Bowl is such an interesting time, especially for people who are geeks about marketing. Such an interesting time. So I'm going to be a geek about marketing and market myself and market the GSMC Sports Podcast. You can follow me at Strickland_Josh on Twitter or Instagram. You can follow GSMC Sports at GSMC_sports. You can like, rate, and review this podcast if you liked it. And once again, I'm sorry for the somber tone, but you probably understand. Thank you for listening, everyone, and I hope you have a great Tuesday, and I hope everything goes great for you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.